The graduates today they definitely need some development. If we look at them in relation to the G8 countries and the BRICS countries, we perform slightly below in terms of the G8 countries from a potential point of view, behavioural potential point of view in the work environment. However, in relation to the BRICS countries, we are slightly ahead from a potential point of view. We see the same from a leadership perspective, but there is still development if we want to compete at the international level in which South Africa is moving towards. I think also, from a leadership perspective, we are seeing improvements though. So if we look at some of the data we've done, we've seen that we now at the point where I think it's 1 in about 10, 11 graduates show leadership potential, which is a good improvement if we compare it to Generation X and the previous generation. So the millennials, there's definitely improvement, which is a positive thing to look at. I think also if organizations focus on managing their recruitment process properly and their talent management process and their engagement process, so keeping the right talent in their organizations, we've seen a considerable impact. So where we've done studies specifically within organizations, they have benchmarked well above the global sort of standard. So there's definitely hope, and there's definitely ways in which we can improve the current situation. But if we don't invest in those different processes, then there are some concerns going forward.
Leaders are simply people who know what to do when other people don't, and who have the ability to get others to follow them, and that will never change. That'll be true 1,000 years from now, and it was always true. So we mustn't overthink some of that. But what I think leaders need to do right now, and what I think the task is right now, is to actually recognize we live in everybody lives in a special moment in history, but we are going through a period of change that's unlike the change that history normally brings. History will look back on this era we are living in and see that there were significant shifts in how society structures itself, in how politics works itself out, in the economic systems of the world. And it's almost every system you can think of is going through change at precisely the same time. And so the leaders we need are not leaders who will hold to entrenched positions or who will play politics with the system, but they are leaders who will give us a vision. And so to give you a comparison, Ghana for me is a wonderful country right now. Found oil a few years ago, being quite transparent with where the oil revenues are going, using the money to grow the country. But the thing that fascinates me about Ghana is you go to Ghana and you meet the client you're working with, a guy in his silk suit in a 5-star hotel, and he talks back to you, or she talks back to you and says, you know what, we in Ghana, we want to have a democratic transition. This was a year or two ago. They're one of the first African countries to transfer power from one party to another through a democratic process. We still haven't done that. To have a democratic process of transferring power once the liberation movement has come in. They've done that. They've transferred to the opposition party with no violence. And before that, this businessman, top businessman, was saying, we want to do this. We as Ghanaians want to be the first country in Africa to stop receiving aid and start giving aid. Mm-hmm. And then you finish the meeting and you go, wow, what a vision for the country. Then you hop in the taxi to take you back to the airport, and the taxi driver says, we in Ghana, we want to stop being aid recipients and we want to be aid givers. And we want to have a democratic election. Then the security guard at the airport who's checking your bags through tells you the same thing. And he said, does everybody in this country have the same vision? Mm-hmm. And they do. Yeah. And then you come to South Africa and you say, what's our vision? What do we want to be as a country? Who do we want to be as a people? And until you know that, you don't know what you're supposed to be teaching in primary school. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing as a parent because you don't know what type of people you need. So the Germans are German, so they go and find 70 machinists, let's do it. But we're not Germans. What we are, we need to find out who do we want to be as a nation. It's a very philosophical question, and it does take 40 years to answer. But we need to be answering it. The type of leaders we need to answer your question is the leaders who can present that vision to us.
What is very encouraging with the leader that you're possibly going to have in 15, 20 years' time, and you're starting to see it now with this Generation Y, is the desire to give back to society. I'm amazed at how many times I've been called into interviews when somebody says, all things being equal, what's going to be the deal breaker with you to join Invest Tech? He says, my interest is wanting to know what it is that you do for society. When we put out a call for individuals to volunteer, I see a whole host of these youngsters be the ones that are coming up. So in my view, it's good to see tomorrow's leaders going to be becoming socially aware and appreciating to a large and greater extent that the sustainability and success, may I add, of business depends on the sustainability and success of the communities within which we operate. That leaders are not only those who are able to map how it is, where it is we need to get to and how it is we get there, but are those that take others with them, particularly those less advantaged than them.
But Seth, my issue then is, why are we not hearing corporate leaders? Let's not only think government's the problem. Why are we not hearing CEOs say this? Why are we not hearing government ministers saying this? This is my point. We see this in business when we're engaging, and we hear from the younger generation who absolutely saying, yes, that's us. And then the leadership does nothing with that. Nothing. I'd like to ask Gertrude, actually, take that question and say, how does the younger generation perceive? So in your opening statement, you said, we'd like to be mentored, and that's definitely what our research says. Young people, that's top of their list. If you provide, and then kind of third or fourth on the list is we want to give back. So all of that's come out. But as Gertrude, as you look at the leadership that's being provided, what I was saying earlier about the vision, does a younger generation feel that that's lacking? And how do you respond? And sort of is there leadership coming?
I think there is. Generation X, they must not beat themselves out so bad. We do look up to you, and I think many times the people we want to be is because we have seen the leadership in Generation X. And we say, if that person can do that, that means we can do it too, and we can do it better. That's just what changes us. The fact that we think we can do it better. We can do it more faster and efficiently, and we can take it further. So like, for instance, when I sit here, when I think, let's speak South Africa, I'm immediately thinking Ghana, Kenya, for instance. I'm thinking Nigeria. Already, my mind has gone into the continent, and I'm pulling in all these young leaders from all these different countries in my head, thinking how I look up to these people. So yes, there are leaders out there. And if I could just take you back, there are leaders who we term action-oriented leaders, who we sit back and say, wow, he did that, I can do that too. So yes, to answer your question, there are leaders out there.
Thomas Jefferson once said, every generation needs a new revolution. And when I kind of study revolutions around the world, young people were always at the forefront. Irrespective of which generation it is, they're always at the forefront of that revolution. And I think there's something that our young people have. There's a burning desire inside of them. And I think, man, we need to listen to those voices and say, right, how do we help them? How does corporate South Africa, the education system, the government, all the key stakeholders, how do we help those young people achieve that? And I think also some of the key words for me, listening to the conversations tonight, is the collaboration from everyone. We all need to come in. Yes, we can sit down and say, right, we've had these issues for so many years. It's time to say, right, this far, no further. How do we now collectively, because we love this country, we love this continent, we want to make an impact, how do we move forward together from here?
Do your research, do your research about the people coming to you, asking for jobs. And I think if I can speak for our parents who are raising us, if your child wants to be a farmer, help them become a farmer. Because then you're tapping into their talent and you're tapping into their passion, and they will be a great farmer. So I think for Generation X and for our leaders who are out there and people we look up to, be able to be at a position where you can support that talent. Ignore everything else and be able to just, in your mind, in your vision, in your strategy, be able to support talent in the young people who come to you and help them grow that talent.